for me, moving away, firstly, from my family was a very big deal. Like, I come from a very close-knit family, and I was always had someone around. So to go from that, and from the time I moved to Pretoria, I lived alone. I didn't stay in res. When I say reparenting it yourself, it means that once you come into these young adult ages in your late teens, going into university, sometimes if you haven't experienced that validation in a certain area, or you feel like you have to perform for that validation, it transgresses into your adult life. I wish you had told us back in second year, but now learning it now, it makes perfect sense that as a student, you don't qualify for imposter syndrome.
I like delusion. Delusion is it's not bad. I always say that if you want to be in love, you need to have like some delusion.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and if you want to be a dreamer, there has to be a lot of delusion as well. And so
I feel like we both wouldn't be here without delusions.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to yet another epic episode of the Grounded and Fearless podcast, the podcast that is just for you. On today's episode, I've got a friend of mine, Denika, and today we are tackling all issues relating to reparenting ourselves, imposter syndrome, and fears that we have carried with ourselves from a young age. And we're just breaking those things down as we transition from, I could say, young adults into actual adults. Denika, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, you're welcome. I'm excited that we can actually meet up today. I know this week is a hectic week for myself and you.
Yes.
But luckily we could find the time, and now we're here today.
Very grateful to be here.
Yeah. Just to introduce yourself, just tell us where you're from, where you grew up, where you were born. Obviously, now I know those details, but just for the audience, I'm pretty sure there's people that are seeing you for the first time and would like to know a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Denika, and I'm 24 years old. I'm currently studying at Onderstepoort, Veterinary Medicine, Veterinary Science, 5th year. So originally I'm from Durban, and then I left Durban when I was 5 years old, and I moved to New Zealand with my family.
Oh, that's nice.
So I grew up there for a bit, and then came back to South Africa when I was about 12, and ended up in Cape Town of all places, and did my high schooling in Cape Town, and then moved to Pretoria for university. And now I'm living in a couple places, but like exploring the world on the way.
Good. Yeah, I think one thing we have in common is that, we lived in different places. I didn't live internationally, but I was born in Limpopo. Parents moved to Pretoria when I was in grade R, and then I did most of my school journey was in Nelspruit until I finished matric, and then I stayed over for a gap year. And if I could ask you, like, living in all these different areas in different countries, how would you say that has shaped who you are today, learning about different cultures, growing up, and all those things?
I think something that I really appreciated about being in New Zealand, specifically during those primitive years, was getting to meet people that were so different, but came from very different cultural backgrounds, but had a lot in common.
Okay.
And learning about it naturally. I will say that coming back to South Africa and the history that we have, it was very new to me because I left when I was very young.
Yeah.
And in South Africa, we really taught in school about differences in our cultures and races. And for me at first, it was very difficult because I only knew about that naturally, and I would naturally learn from friends or teachers about their cultures. So it definitely, I think, for me, helped teach me how different we can all be, but can relate on a deeper level.
Yeah.
In terms of the way we were brought up. But I think it also allowed me to really appreciate how amazing those differences can be between people. And I think that's where my love for travel has really come in play in terms of why I would love to travel the world and experience more.
That is true. Yeah, and I think it's a privilege that you actually got to experience that, especially at such a young age, because some of the things that, people that don't get to see, that there's more people of different races, different ethnicities and different cultures, when you don't get that exposure, and when you come to, when you meet someone from a different race or culture, sometimes it's not even a thing of you being racist, it's just that I didn't know, or lack of understanding, or something where it's like, wow, this is completely different from how I grew up or how I see certain things. There's different examples that you can get. I know one friend of mine said someone gave him food, and then he returned the lunchbox empty, and the friend was offended. But From where he
Yes,
came from,
exactly.
there was nothing
That's
wrong.
normal,
The
yeah,
important thing
exactly.
was making sure the lunchbox returned.
Yes.
But then the friend was like, I gave you food, but you returned an empty lunchbox. And it was just like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was such a big deal for you. But it's one of those small
Yeah.
cultural differences. And I could say you had the advantage of learning the differences at a young age, and even moving back to South Africa when you were 12, you were still sort of like young, primary school, and having the different experiences.
And even for me, like when I was 15, I went on an exchange program. So for 3 months, I lived in Australia in boarding house, without family. And it really helped me first come out of my shell. I was forced to speak to people and be confident because otherwise you wouldn't be able to survive.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really started to appreciate how much you could learn, even just, for me, moving out of Cape Town to Pretoria, when I moved to Pretoria, it was my first time ever coming to Pretoria, and I didn't know a single person.
Yeah.
And even differences within races of where different people come from. It was very interesting for me because I feel like I've made a lot of friends, but also learned so much about even my own race and the way people in my own race are brought up. And if maybe I stayed in Durban, the way I was brought up would have been different compared to me living in Cape Town and those types of things. And I think university is a great mixing pot of different ethnicities, religions, social classes where you can really get to know your peers.
Yeah.
Sometimes in university, if you have friends from high school, you kind of stay in the same groups, which is something I absolutely hate. I don't like using hate, it's a strong word.
Yeah.
But I feel like you need to seek that discomfort in order to grow.
That is very true. And touching on this topic of like being brought up differently and coming to university and stuff like that, I'm assuming when you moved to Pretoria, you sort of were staying by yourself and had to figure things out by yourself now. Yeah. How would you say, what were some of the things that, obviously our parents, they did a good job. Like you're already saying, you're studying and they tried their best basically. But there are some things that you had to start doing for yourself, if I could say, and learning and unlearning certain things, like starting to reparent yourself now, because now you're this independent child, young teenager or young adult that's now trying to seek their place in society and trying to find themselves. So how would you say that when you started reparenting yourself, and how did that change your life? And how did you start seeing different things from a different perspective?
So for me, firstly, I have 3 older siblings. I have 3 older brothers, and a lot of what I thought university would be like was based off what their university experiences were like. So when I was born, my eldest brother was already in university, and the way I used to view them at uni is very different from how university and young adulthood is, or turned out for me. We live in a world where there's social media and the internet, and back then that wasn't really a big thing. And for me, moving away, firstly, from my family was a very big deal. Like, I come from a very close-knit family, and I always had someone around. So to go from that, and from the time I moved to Pretoria, I lived alone. I didn't stay in res. So I've been living alone now for 6 years.
Sure.
And I'll have to say that every single year, there's been dramatic changes. And I only got to the point where I really understood reparenting or became aware of the kind of system of reparenting yourself maybe this year. So at the start of this year, I had gone through quite a bit in terms of academic stress, stress with friends, relationships and that type of thing, family relations. So I kind of sat down, and in your 5th year of veterinary science, you only have like 6 months before you start clinics, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of sat down and I was thinking, this is the last time I'm going to be without responsibility and allow myself to have the time to truly focus on myself without distraction, and to really work on myself to make sure I was secure before I entered clinics and happy with who I am as a person outside of it before I entered clinics.
Yeah.
Clinics can be cutthroat if you're not secure in yourself. So I started spending more time by myself. So allowing myself to rest, and I would go for these long hour walks at night, and I started listening to podcasts and listening to different YouTube videos, and I'd slowly been doing it over the years, but this was the year I really tuned in on the self-care aspect, and every night before I go to bed, I get teased a lot for this, but I spend 40 minutes to do my skincare at night, and I will listen to a video every single night without fail.
Yeah.
And it kind of brought me to the sense of, I realized that a lot of the issues I was dealing with came back to my self-confidence.
Yeah.
So I can be confident in speaking to the next person, but at the end of the day, whatever they say, if that's having an impact on me deeply, no matter who the person is, it doesn't mean I'm necessarily secure as a person.
Yeah.
So the idea of reparenting myself came in when I started realizing that I wasn't being very nice to myself. Whether it be in friendships where I was not setting boundaries, in my family relationships where I wasn't setting boundaries, and also to myself in terms of the academic pressure.
Yeah.
So when I speak about reparenting ourselves as adults, this is not scientific, this is what I believe, okay?
Yeah.
So nobody hold me to this, but if it can help you, I would like to share it with the next person. But for me, when you're young, so from the ages to 0 to 18, you have mom and dad or whatever parental figure to be there to, provide you with the confidence that you need to get through every day. And that comes through the form of validation, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be, mom and dad telling you did good, or you can do this if you have a test that you're stressed for, or, you're not feeling so good about your self-image, but mom and dad say, no, but you look beautiful. And from those, like when you're a child, you have mom and dad to do that. And sometimes mom and dad don't do that in the way that you need. And that's not their fault and it's not your fault. It's just sometimes our parents don't know.
Yeah.
And it's hard to communicate that. And it doesn't matter what race you are, what culture you are. I feel like this is something that everyone goes through. And it doesn't mean that you have to be a young adult. I see people in their 60s, 70s that don't know this here. I see it with my own parents and they're in their late 60s and they didn't get a chance to do this for themselves, and I get to teach them that now. But when I say reparenting it yourself, it means that once you come into these young adult ages in your late teens, going into university, sometimes if you haven't experienced that validation in a certain area, or you feel like you have to perform for that validation, it transgresses into your adult life.
Yeah.
So, for example, academic validation. If in school you really did well and you used to get that validation from mom and dad, they'll be very proud if you did well, and your teachers. A lot of specifically students in vet school and medical school, and a lot of these really demanding degrees were like that in high school.
Yeah.
And they don't know themselves outside of doing well. So if they don't do well, it feels like they're not good enough. And same with relationships. Maybe if mom and dad didn't speak about romantic relationships growing up, you might have thought maybe you weren't good enough to be in that relationship with that person. So you start seeking really bad partners who will give you any validation, doesn't matter.
Whether good or bad.
Yes, exactly. Some sort of validation. And so when we come back to it, it's about you providing yourself that validation so you don't go seeking it from others and end up in bad situations. So this can be academics. So that's where I really felt most of it. Coming from a place in high school where I did really well to coming into uni and I failed and repeated a year. So during that time, I really struggled mentally.
Yeah.
And it kind of was like God telling me you need to take a rest when it happened. But in the moment, you don't see it as that. And over the years, there were definitely times when I went back into uni in my third year, like back into the next year, I found myself at a crossroads where I thought I wasn't able to do it because I had failed the previous year. And on the brink of a mental breakdown, I got some really great advice. And it was, you're not here to pass, you're here to learn. So if you're showing up as your best self every day and trying to learn instead of trying to get that pass mark, it will naturally come in the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. I just want to ask you speaking of something that actually, I think I heard today, I don't know if it was a podcast or the radio or something, because I also listen to a lot of podcasts, especially Grounded and Fearless.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. And the speaker was basically saying, one of the biggest things or the main thing in life is showing up, whether showing up for yourself or showing up for others. But just the mere act of showing up says a
Yes,
lot
exactly.
and is a big step, and you doing a lot of stuff. So I like when you touched on the idea of showing up, which was quite important. I also believe that if you can just show up and you have that belief and you just be present, you've done the biggest part of it. That initial starting point or the presence makes a big difference. And speaking on, just to touch on the veterinary science aspect, how would you say studying a course like veterinary science that is obviously challenging and difficulty in terms of the academic side, the practical side, because you have a lot of practicals and some of them are like labor intensive, where you get physically tired and mentally tired. How would you say, or what would you say with some of the fears that came about or any insecurities that came from studying that degree?
So because it's such an academically challenging degree, imposter syndrome is definitely a thing that comes up, I think, with almost every vet student at some point in their career, every veterinarian, even in their career after university.
Yeah.
And for me, I definitely felt that in every single year. There are definitely times where I'm feeling that imposter syndrome. But one of our lecturers actually told us recently, and I wish she had told us back in the second year, but now learning it now, it makes perfect sense that as a student, you don't qualify for imposter syndrome. Only once you enter the working field should you be feeling what it's called as imposter syndrome, because as a student, you're not supposed to know everything. You're not supposed to have all the cards. You're not supposed to know everything if it's asked to you. So if you don't know it, it's okay. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to make the mistakes. The important thing is not how you make the mistake, but how you learn from it. So if I don't show up my best today, or actually, I believe that every day you do show up your best. Sometimes what you perceive to be your best is up here, but sometimes what your actual best is here today. And so sometimes what the university expects of you is up here, but sometimes all you can do is this.
Yeah.
So you can't be the one to put that extra pressure on yourself when everyone else is already putting pressure. And when I speak about reparenting yourself in terms of your academics, the way I look at it is I imagine myself as a little girl, right? So if I were to think about a 4-year-old little girl, and you can apply this to whichever avenue in life, whether it be relationships, work, academics, personal life, you have to stand up for that little girl or little boy.
Yeah.
And, you wouldn't tell this little girl, oh, you failed this test, so you're going to fail the next one.
Sure.
Yeah. You wouldn't tell her, you're not good enough if you mess up this OSCE. And you wouldn't tell her, no, but you're going to fail again if you failed once before. You don't say those things to a little girl. And we wouldn't say those things to our peers. So why do we say that to ourselves?
That's very powerful.
And that was the thing that shifted my perspective 100%, like 180 to the other way, because I used to have a lot of negative self-talk, and it comes from that validation of, if I'm not performing academically, then I don't feel that validation. If I'm not performing in my relationships, which happens no matter what age you are. I see it in adults where they perform for their parents still, they perform for their kids because they think, if I do this, I'm going to get the love I deserve and need. But as an adult, it's as much as it's tough luck, no one's coming to save you. Mom and dad are not coming anymore. And it's not that they're not there to support you, but it's no longer their responsibility to keep giving you that validation. And we as adults need to provide ourselves that validation. And it comes down to giving that validation to that little girl or little boy. Telling them they're beautiful every day. Doesn't matter if you're a boy or girl, those types of things. So for me, I have nieces and nephews. I have 3 nephews and a niece. And specifically seeing my niece, she is very similar to how I was as a kid. And something that I've been very grateful to teach her is, I would ask her, and I'll ask you the question before I answer it, but who is the one person you're going to spend the most time with in your life, do you think?
Possibly me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So lots of people will say parents or friends or those types of things, partners. But at the end of the day, when you're born, you have you. And at the day you die, you have you. And if you're not happy with that person, nothing else matters. So there's no point trying to seek the validation in partners, parents, academics, because nothing's ever going to fill that void, as much as you try to.
Yeah, that's very true. It's basically saying that, realizing that you are your biggest cheerleader, you're your biggest friend, and you know you the way no one else would know you, basically.
Yes,
and you have to show up for yourself in that sense. And then when would you say, since we were speaking about validation, when would you say that you stopped seeking validation, or how did you come to that conclusion, that whether it's for academics or familial, like how did you get up over that and be like, you know what, validation is something that I'm not seeking externally, but giving it to myself?
When I was watching that video that told me about this little girl scenario, I think that's when it really clicked for me.
Yeah.
And that was just this year. So in my 6th year of studying, but every single year I went through different friend groups, trying to seek it from friends, romantic relationships, from mom and dad, from my siblings. And I started to realize that I would get very upset when they wouldn't give me that validation. And I would get very upset with the person. And it would create a lot of unnecessary turbulence in my life.
Sure. Looking back and to how you were seeking this validation and acceptance, how would you say that affected your relationships then, and how you chose, I don't know, whether romantically or the friend groups you had, and how would you contrast that to now in terms of seeking that acceptance and that?
So romantically, I would say I would let anyone who gave me attention, have a chance, which I regret. But I needed to go through it to learn, you know. And with friendships, if someone showed up for me in a way that I would have showed up for them, normally it was like the most amazing thing, because people hadn't showed up for me in that sense previously. And you kind of get codependent with friends, with people. And even with my family, like especially having older siblings, you are constantly seeking their validation. You look up to them. And when they would, say something off turn, or, they didn't mean it in that way, but I used to take it as that because I was seeking that validation.
Sure.
And I started to realize, imagine if my niece was doing that to me, and say I did say something, and I started to see it with her. And say I did say something and I didn't mean it in that way, but she took it as that. And I started realizing, whatever I was feeling with my grown-ups in my life, she was starting to feel that too. And then that's when I started exploring this whole scenario of validating oneself. And the way to do it, there's no shortcuts. There's no... going to a therapist definitely can help you open up about these topics, but at the end of the day, it's a 45 minute to an hour session. And then what happens after that when you go home?
Yeah.
I've tried a lot of different therapies. I've tried hypnotherapy. I've tried doing Reiki. I tried traditional Chinese medicine, psychotherapy. I've been to a psychiatrist. So a lot of these things, I was looking for the easy way out. But I had to sit down with myself and say, what is it that's actually the issue here? And what are the patterns I'm seeing in my life that are negative, and why aren't they changing? Because a lot of the times with friendships and romantic partners and academics, it was the same story in a different font. Sure. That was cycling and cycling and cycling. And I started realizing, what is the lesson here that I'm not learning? And a lot of the time it came back to that self-confidence and self-worth.
Yeah, that is... saying a lot to digest there, but everything you're saying is very true. I also liked when you touched on how we speak to ourselves, and how we spend most of the time with ourselves, and we spend we will be with ourselves for the most part, and it's quite true. I mean, I did an episode once when I was speaking of how self-care is not just the things we do, like you mentioned, the skincare routine and all those things, but it's also how we speak to ourselves and the respect that we hold towards ourselves. That's also where we can start to instill the validation that we require from other people to ourselves. Because if you don't respect yourself, it becomes very difficult for someone else to respect you, and you don't expect respect from other people because you don't have that same respect for yourself. So it basically all comes down to me as an individual saying that I need to appreciate myself. I need to love me for me and be that for myself, basically, and be that cheerleader, the diehard fan, and all those things.
If you're cheering for yourself so loud, you're not going to notice when other people aren't.
Actually, that's very true. I like that.
Yeah, like, like sometimes, especially in clinics, I have a lot of friends that were in clinics and they would say, the lecturer shouted at me today or the clinician. And, at the end of this is why I feel it's so strong, even going into, university as a whole, but specifically going into clinics. If I mess up today and I get shouted at, how am I going to take that shouting? Am I going to take it personally and say, you're stupid, why would you do that there? You're incapable, why are you doing that there? Or I'm going to say, okay, I made a mistake. How am I going to go forward from here to make sure I don't make that mistake again?
True.
But even if I do make the mistake again, I'm not going to be my number one hater. I'm going to be my number one supporter.
Yeah.
And support isn't unequivocally saying, go, 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 whoop, whoop. It's also saying sometimes there's reasons why you're messing up. Maybe you need rest. Maybe you need to show up for yourself in other ways. So when you come back home from that long day at work, whether you be in university or whether you're 50 years old coming back from your job, if you're waiting for your partner to give you that validation at the end of a shitty day or a bad day, you haven't loved yourself enough. And that's how it leads to these toxic relationships. And when I say toxic relationships, you're expecting things of the partner that you can't give yourself.
That is true. That's right.
And
very deep. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of, and I mean, another way to put it with boundaries in general, I like to think of boundaries as a gate, not a brick wall. You know, it's a gate that you let in certain things and you don't. And for me, boundaries with friends, for example, getting last minute invites that don't make you feel so good, but going because you feel, okay, but at least they invited me. Those types of things I used to do. And now I'm like, actually, no, I'm quite happy to be alone. I enjoy my company. I'm not desperate to be in other people's company for the validation. So I'll politely decline. But you guys have a great time. And not holding any bad feelings about it.
Like a grudge.
A grudge. Just letting it go. Yeah.
That's quite powerful, actually. And I think there's a lot to unpack for our viewers and myself, actually, that, sometimes we put other people's needs way before ourselves, as you say. It's a last-minute invite. It's a big inconvenience, but because of letting the next person down. But then at the end of the day, what's the root cause of that feeling? Why is it such a big burden on you to let other people down? It's like, are you seeking acceptance? Are you seeking validation? Are you insecure of yourself, being in your own space, and all those things start to creep up, where sometimes we need to think deeper into why we do certain things. There might be some underlying issues, that maybe some fears that we are avoiding, where we're being held hostage by our own fears, and we need to be fearless and pursue that and see. I remember when I was still studying vet, I also studied vet, I'm guessing everyone knows that. So there was some modules where they were really tough, and we'd get scared, like really scared of failing and all. And I was sitting, I think, with myself first. I'm like, what's the worst thing that could happen? So obviously, no one studies to fail. No one really wants to do something just to fail. But I was like, okay, what happens if I fail? And okay, I repeat the year. And then what? So I kept on asking, then what, because I'm only thinking, oh, I'm going to fail. Everything's going to be bad. So like, okay, you failed the module, then what? You repeat the year. Then what? You stay behind the year. And then what? So everything was just an inconvenience, but it was never anything so bad that it didn't match the amount of fear that I had for that. And had I not pursued that and been like, what's the root cause, So I think we need to have that idea as well in terms of life, like, why are we seeking that validation so much from other people? And then explore that ourselves and figure it out by ourselves. And
in terms of fear, just to add on to that, I don't think fear is a bad thing. I think it's just something that happens. It's a normal emotion to feel. And in a way, it's your body's protective mechanism. When it's afraid, it gives you a gut feeling that maybe something is wrong or something can go wrong. And our brains are made to think like that, to protect us. But something I've adapted is, what happens if you fail? What happens if you do amazing? What happens if this goes amazingly and I do really well? It's a 50-50 chance at the end of the day. all you can do is once you let go of that control of wanting it to go perfectly, and you start to realize you actually have very little control over what's going to happen. You're going to have very little control of how the exam goes. You're going to have very little control of where you get placed for work, or the type of boss you have, or the type of partner that you end up with. And you start to realize the only thing you have control over is yourself. And you really place that that target on learning how to control our emotions. You're supposed to feel the emotion, but you need to regulate it as an adult. You can't be acting out because of it and, getting into toxic behaviors, whether that be partying, smoking, drinking, toxic relationships, toxic friendships. You need to start showing up for yourself at the end of the day and say, listen, no one else is going to come save me. No one else is going to tell me it's all going to be okay. So you know what? I'm going to say it's all going to be okay.
Yeah, that's good.
And I don't know, for me, no matter what higher, if you believe in a higher power, whether it be a God or it doesn't matter what religion or the universe, I like to trust that there's a plan, a bigger plan in place that I have no foreseeing of at all. So if you just show up every day as your best, if I can say, listen, I'm better today than I was yesterday. And a part of that is showing gratitude, whether at the end of the day you're saying, listen, I'm grateful for these 3 things today. It can be small, it can be big. But showing up every day is the biggest part of it, and the hardest step in getting through it. But yeah.
Yeah, what you're saying is true. And I want to go to that idea of fear and have experienced all these emotions, but regulating them, not letting them have so much power over you. And I want to ask you, one of my favorite questions that I like asking on the show is, what does grounded and fearless mean to you in this season of your life? Basically, when you hear the phrase grounded and fearless, what comes to mind?
So I'm going to break it up into grounded and fearless, because I feel like they're 2 different topics. For me, you can be grounded in different ways. So the first one being for me is being sure in oneself. As you said, you have to be your biggest cheerleader, even when everything is going crazy around you. And being grounded is a part of that. It's being able to say, listen, I'm here in this space because I deserve to be here, but also I'm going to be here with humbleness.
True.
And, I'm here to learn every day. And it's okay if I mess up, but I'm going to try and do my best every single day.
Sure.
So being grounded is also knowing and understanding and showing gratitude, knowing where you came from and how far you've come. Sometimes we don't slow down enough and realize that we're living in, asked blessings, and prayers that we prayed for so many years ago. We're living in them today. Yeah. And so I think a way to keep grounded is to keep reflecting that, hey, 10 years ago, I didn't think I would get into vet. I didn't think I would be here. And, in that sense, being the one to not just be humble or humble yourself, but also say, listen, I deserve to be here. Just me being here is a miracle in itself. Sure.
That's so powerful.
And fearless, I have a big thing with anxiety after, I've had anxiety for many years and depression. For me, being fearless is knowing you have the fear and still showing up. It's okay to feel the fear.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel like you're not supposed to be here, but still standing here and being here, that is what I think is fearless to me. In terms of the physicality of it, also being aware of the fear is very important.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to sit down in a room, and for me personally, I like to speak to God like He's my best friend or she's my best friend, and just saying how it is, how I feel, where I'm feeling that anxiety, where I'm feeling that fear. Sometimes it's just saying it out loud, which can help make it seem so small. And whether that be academics, personal life, whatever, there's no fear that isn't valid as well. So it's valid and it's okay to feel that fear, but as long as you're showing up and not letting it stop you from showing up as your best self every day.
That is very powerful. And I don't want to add to it because I think you've said it and you've owned it, and it's really interesting. And I always say this, that the different answers that I get from that question, it says a lot about the individual, and it just says a lot about how deeply everyone thinks about these things. And I like asking that question because whenever someone answers, it inspires me in one way or another. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play a game, Would You Rather section. I'm going to ask you 3 questions and you're just going to pick which side you want to fall into.
Okay.
Let's test test your personality and see what kind of person you are. I'm just joking.
Okay.
So the first
There's no right or wrong answers, right?
I'd say it depends on what's the premise of your morality.
Okay.
Like what's good and right from wrong for your side. Like what's good and what's wrong, basically. Okay. I'm joking. It's not really I'm just messing with you. So the first question is, would you rather chase your dream and fail or never try and always wonder what if?
I would definitely want to chase my dream and fail. I have a very strong mentality about this in the sense of failing is not as scary as it seems. And I'd rather fail faster than just wait. You know, like there's nothing wrong with failing. Yeah. Sometimes you need to fail 50 times in order to get that one time where it just goes amazingly. And I'd honestly rather fail faster than, just not let it stop me from doing what I really want.
That is true. And I guess that feeling or that idea of not knowing what could have come is worse than failing.
Yes.
Where I would have tried, like we were saying earlier on, showed up, gave your best, even though your best was not enough. Maybe the expectation was here and your best was there. But you showed up and you did it and you failed. And that confidence and that security, knowing that, you know what, I did it, it wasn't for me. And I'm at peace with that.
I like to think of when you get no, it's like shortened version of not yet.
Yeah.
Sometimes the keys you have don't fit in the keyhole for that door as yet. Sometimes you are preparing yourself to become the person that's able to walk through that door.
That's very powerful. I like that. Okay, second one. Would you rather be deeply respected by a small group of people or mildly liked by millions of people?
I'd rather be deeply respected by a small group of people.
Okay.
For me, yes, it's great to help a lot of people. But if I could help one person, I would already feel that satisfaction in my heart, because there are definitely times where I felt like maybe I could, I would love to have some help in that sense. But I'd rather be known by few, but largely affect them, than rather just be liked.
Yeah.
I think to be liked is a bit of like you being a doormat. I think it's very good to have haters.
Yeah.
I think it's very good to have people that talk about you. And if you're focusing on yourself and you're focusing on your dreams, you're not going to have the time to do that anyways. So, yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's very, very true. Like, respect goes a long way. And, they always say, like, sometimes you don't need a million, fake fans but sometimes you just need 100 loyal people that really value you. That's all you need, and not everyone needs that spotlight. And I think having that close-knit community is much more.
And what you can do for one person. Sometimes we make ourselves smaller in the sense of we don't realize how much of an impact we have on other people.
It's like we invalidate our existence because we don't
want to take up
space. Impact 10,000 people.
Yes.
But it might be that you have that one friend where your presence in their life does so much for them, like so much. But then because it's one individual, we sort of don't see the value in that. It's not a numbers game, but it's more of a, how can I say, a depth and impactfulness, if I can, that's a word. Yeah.
Like something for me just this week. So we went to go do elephant work and I'm trying to work on my social media and I'm really scared and, but I'm trying just to, fake the confidence and just go with it. But I posted this video and I was so reluctant to post it. And, there was this one girl who commented on it and she turned out to be a vet student. I think she was a first year. And I have no idea who this girl is. And, my video didn't reach a lot of people, but for me to see her comment, she had said that she was feeling so horrible about the choice she had made as a vet student to become a vet. And she was feeling that imposter syndrome and feeling like she wasn't going to get through it. And she just saw this video And it just kept her going for the week.
Sure. That's
And I started
beautiful.
crying when I saw it because I was like, you know what? Like, it doesn't matter if you get 10 views or 10,000 views, but if you can help that one person just by, posting or showing more of yourself. I think in society, we're very scared to show ourselves in fear of judgment. Or, my favorite thing, I've been called delusional quite a few times. I think delusion is the best thing for you, but I think just showing up and showing your authentic self can really help the next person.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I like delusion. Delusion it's not bad. I always say that if you want to be in love, you need to have like some delusion.
Yes, yeah.
And if you want to be a dreamer, there has to be a lot of delusion as well. And so
I feel like we both wouldn't be here without delusion. Like, when someone said it to me, they didn't mean it as a compliment, but I took it as a compliment. Because I was like, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for delusion.
Me too. Like, if people around me always say, like, when ask me things and like, what do you want to do? Is like always some far off thing. And like, how do you think you're going to achieve that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or you're crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm
that's
crazy.
That's the idea. That's what I want.
Exactly.
So what do you want me to do? Actually, the last question actually sort of ties into that. Would you rather have unlimited time but no clear goals, or crystal clear goals but limited time?
I'd rather have crystal clear goals and limited time.
Yeah.
I think we already have limited time.
That is true.
I
thought of that as I read the question. I'm like, we kind of do have limited.
But at the same time, the one thing I would say to everyone is, don't stop yourself if the end goal isn't there yet.
Yeah.
If you kind of have a feeling that, listen, I don't like this. I know what I don't like, but I'm still figuring out what I do like. I think that's also a goal in itself. And don't stop yourself from further progressing if you don't have all your cards in order. And for me specifically this year, there came a point where, okay, this is personal, but like I started to realize that maybe the clinical side of vet isn't for me. And from those 6 months, the start of the year to June, I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing in vet. But a part of me was like, you know what? I might not be enjoying it now, but I committed to this. So I'm going to follow through. But it's okay. I'm going to work on myself. And I believe in God's timing. So after going through exams and everything, I still didn't know. I was like, I'll wait till clinics to see if I really enjoy it, but I don't know what the plan is after here. I have a couple things I really like, but I don't know what the end goal is. When people ask me what it is that is my dream, I was like, actually, I don't really know it yet,
Yeah.
And that's okay. Don't stop yourself from taking the steps forward just because you don't have a clear goal yet. But it came very clear to me during our orientation week when I got to meet a couple of now mentors for myself. And as I was speaking to them, the cards were just falling in place of exactly what it is that I wanted. And sometimes you kind of have to let go of the outcome and just trust the process. Put your head down. At the end of the day, discipline is more important than motivation. Sometimes you're not going to have the motivation to show up every day.
Yeah.
To show your best self every day, to go to the lecture, to go into work every day. But the discipline is where if you stay disciplined, it will start to show itself and the steps will start to show itself in time.
Yeah, that is true. It's more like earlier on we spoke of, there's so many things we cannot control. And it's like outputs. We can only control the inputs. And the inputs are you showing up, you doing your work and you doing your part. And then the output will sort itself out.
In the right timing.
Yeah, you just
sometimes
have to do what you need to do.
You want A, but there's like an A++ behind another door, So sometimes you think you have it figured out, but you actually don't have all the cards.
That is true.
So sometimes it is hard to let go, but you have to let go in order to get greater things. So
Fair enough. Yeah, that's very true. Denika, thank you so much for coming to the show. I think it was a really, really good episode, and the conversation we had was really a needed one, I think, especially for like the young audience and like those in varsity, young adults. I think even
older
adults, like not youth people as well, if I can call them that, because there's certain things that we grew up learning that we have to unlearn, and not every lesson we learn growing up is a good one. Not everyone is a bad one, but then it's that thing of you molding yourself into the kind of person you want to be, understanding who you are, what you want for yourself, there's some lessons that can't carry you to the destination, and you have to remove that for new ones. And I think you broke down that conversation very nicely for the audience. And I think there's a lot of value for people to get from this episode. And I just wanted to ask you if you have any last words for the viewers as you say goodbyes, and we see them on the next one.
I think the one thing I would want to say, is don't let age stop you from wanting to change your life. Doesn't matter if you're 17, in your 30s, in your 60s. You can always learn to reparent yourself no matter what age you are. Some of these lessons have been ingrained in us since we were kids from our, my parents' parents and those types of things. And the biggest part is showing up for yourself every day. At the end of the day, you're going to come onto this earth alone and you're going to leave with nothing except yourself. So you need to be happy with the person you're leaving with. And don't let others' opinions, others' own values and beliefs get imprinted onto you in an attempt for you to fit in. No matter what age you are, no matter what culture or background you come from, be happy with yourself and learn to be happy and enjoy the small moments because they will fly by very quickly. And for the younger people, also be nicer to your parents. It is also their first time living. And your mom was just a girl as well. Your dad was just a boy. Same with siblings and teachers and lecturers. And you also can be there one day. So be a bit kinder to everyone. Not everyone's going to understand, but be kind. And the most important person to be kind to is yourself.
Thanks, Denika.
Thank you so much.
That was very enjoyable to be here with you. And beautiful people, thank you for tuning in. Until we meet again, adios.
Bye.